Hello there. Welcome to the world of IoT using the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi, as you can see, is a small pocket-sized or a credit card-sized small computer. You can have a look from both the angles, and you can get it from any of the online stores or from an electronic store which is there near your location. A Raspberry Pi requires a few things. Say, for example, it is just like a small CPU, which is ARM based or licensed by ARM. The intellectual property is licensed by ARM. That is, it licenses the making, but the construction is done by the Broadcom company. Now, as you can have a look here, this particular Raspberry that is there is a Raspberry Pi 2 Model B version 1.1. So there are two types of Raspberry Pi. This is Raspberry Pi 2, which was Raspberry Pi 2014, whereas this one, maybe you cannot have a look here, but this one is Raspberry Pi 3. Okay, major differences. Have a look at the Broadcom chip. The Broadcom chip of Raspberry Pi 2 is BCM2836, whereas the Raspberry Pi 3 is a BCM2837. Okay. What's the difference? First of all, let's see the similarities and then go on to the differences. Okay, a Raspberry Pi has 4 USB ports. It has an Ethernet port. It has an HDMI port. It's an audio port. It has a camera port. It has a small display port. And it has, of course, the power cable. And it has 40 GPIO pins, general purpose input-output pins, which you can use for getting values from sensors or giving values to actuators. So you have a lot of stuff on this credit-sized computer, which is, of course, just similar to other controllers like the Arduino-based or the Atmel-based computers or the PICs. You have different pins which can be used out there. The only difference, the Raspberry Pi has an OS, which we will come to in some time. We'll understand them in detail. So here you have for Raspberry Pi 2 all this, as well as in Raspberry Pi 3. You can see the 4 USB ports, the 1 Ethernet port. You have the 40 pins. This is again used for the display. This one is used for the HDMI, that is for the screen. This is for the camera. This is for the audio jack. And then you have the power cable out here. So that's for the power. Now, so if you have to power on your Raspberry Pi, you can just power it on with this power, this particular point where you can just attach the power cable out here. So it'll get powered on. But provided you have the OS in it, which we'll come to in a second. Okay. What is the difference between a Raspberry 2 and a Raspberry 3? Raspberry 2 and Raspberry 3 has an inbuilt Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability. You can see that somewhere out here. So it has an inbuilt Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability, while this one does not have an input. This is ACT or power, but this does not have inbuilt Wi-Fi or it does not have inbuilt Bluetooth. If you want to include Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to your Raspberry Pi, you need to connect a dongle out here on the USB, maybe a Wi-Fi dongle or a Bluetooth dongle onto your USBs. Okay, the Raspberry, of course, as I said, it's a small credit-sized computer, which means you can attach a keyboard and a mouse on these two USBs. One keyboard, one mouse. You want to see the Raspberry Pi, it is just like a CPU, right? So if you want to see the output of the Raspberry onto a monitor, you can connect this HDMI out here. You can connect the HDMI cable into that, and you can see the output onto a monitor or to a display. So you can connect a monitor, you can connect a keyboard, you can connect a mouse. You can connect an Ethernet cable. For Raspberry 2, Ethernet cables are more widely used because it does not have an inbuilt Wi-Fi. But for Raspberry 3, you can just connect to the Wi-Fi directly. You don't need the Ethernet cable. Still, they have provided that for you, which is of course very much useful. Okay, and this is about a Raspberry Pi board, and of course we need to make the connections. But before that, there is something. Where is the OS? Okay, there is an OS which is going to be there on the Raspberry. OS meaning the operating system. Just like your CPU has Windows or Mac or Linux or something like that, you have an OS, you have an operating system which it works on. The same way the Raspberry Pi works on an OS, and that OS lies where? It lies in a small place out here where you can put something called as an SD card. There's an SD card slot which is there at the bottom of this board. Maybe we can just have a look at another picture and have a look out there. The SD card is put somewhere at the bottom of this particular this thing. So we're going to, yeah, we can have, this is much better, right? So this is a Raspberry, and just a second until it gets loaded up. Okay, till then you can see the SD card which is jugging out from the bottom. That is the SD card. In the SD card we're going to put the operating system on which this is going to get booted up to that operating particular system. So what are we going to do? How are we going to put the operating system on the SD card? Can we directly start the Raspberry Pi without putting the operating system? No, you can't. You need to put the operating system first in the SD card. The SD card must be a minimum of 4 GB or even more. Advisable 8 GB minimum. You can go up till, whatever you want, but it must be a fast SD card. And then the SD card needs to be loaded with an OS. Now, what kind of OS will I go on for? You can go to raspberrypi.org. Raspberrypi.org. You can go on to that. And in raspberrypi.org you have something in the downloads. In the downloads you have, it says Raspbian is the Foundation's official supported operating system. Download it or use Noobs, our easy installer for Raspbian and more. So you can go for Raspbian or Noobs. Noobs is very easy. It's an installer for Raspbian, which helps you to install Raspbian easily on Raspberry. Either ways, what you need to do is you need to open these up. Let's say I open both of them and we'll have a look. Okay, of course, other than Raspbian, you have other OSs also. As you can have a look, there is an Ubuntu Mate, Snappy Ubuntu Core, Windows 10 IoT Core, OSMC. These are all Pinet. Okay, so there are many of them which are third-party operating system images. Not advised completely, of course, advised by Raspberry Pi because they put it up on their raspberrypi.org. But this is the official supported operating system which raspberrypi.org will support, which is very, easy to use. Now, as you can see, this is the Noobs, basically the Noobs download window, and this one is the Raspbian. Now, you can do any one, don't go for both. Okay, if you're doing Noobs is easy. It's an installer for Raspberry. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to download, of course, don't go for the, so this is you can go for this one, that is download the zip or download the torrent version out here, or you can download the torrent version and download the zip version. But don't go for the Noobs Lite, go for the Noobs completely, the bigger package. So because Noobs is an easy operating system installer, it also provides a selective of alternative operating systems which you can use, download from the internet and install if you want anytime. But Noobs Lite, it will have the same operating installer without Raspbian preloaded. So what will happen is, if you have Noobs Lite, you don't have Raspbian already preloaded. You have to start up with Noobs, you have to say enter, and then it says, okay, do you want to install Raspbian? Alright, then if you want to install Raspbian, click on Raspbian, and it will go on to to install Raspbian. But then to install that, first of all, we'll try to take the entire OS from the internet and then go on. So which means don't go for this, go for this. That's about Noobs.